Yeah. You all roll. You already know it's the Galactic One, Illinois. We back cracking spells. Shout out to all the Galactic Guardians, 720 degrees. Shout out to the whole URO, everybody living in the universal right order. Shout out to the House of Consciousness Connecticut chapter. This message being brought to you by K.O.R TV, Kingdom of Righteousness TV. The show is called Wake Up Sheeple. Y'all already know how I do. We about to jump right into the demonstration. I say to all the great prophets, ancestors, aiders, messiahs, messengers who came before, making a platform available so we could be here today, giving you the message. I say. Jumping right into this demo. This is the first demo we doing for this Gregorian Galactic New Year and all that on the Wake Up Sheeple show. So I would like to welcome everybody that's 10 toes down above ground. Happy birthday to my boy Joe Blow, Mighty Joe Blow. Happy solar to my boy and all that. But to begin the show, like I said, for the year, this is the first show we're gonna do on this Self-Study Wednesday. Wednesday deals with self-study. So we study self. And using this extreme supreme math, we're gonna jump right in today, being the first of the 28th, the first month, January, the 28th day. 2026 is the year we in. So we use that math, we add it all up, and we get 21. We get wisdom knowledge. Right? Wisdom, knowledge. What am I saying? To be wise and have knowledge is all being born to understanding. 3. 2 plus 1 give you 3. Understanding, the best part of the mathematics, right? When you have that standpoint of view. And so what we're going to talk about today is the Great Flood. I'm going to talk about the only man or the only nigga or naga who made God of the Bible come down from heavens, right? This guy, Nimrod, was so powerful that he made God come down from heaven. And this is a nigga, by the way. He's a black dude, right? And so we're going to talk about this flood, though. And the reason why I want to talk about the flood, we're going to see how that pertains to self. The Bible has been written, masonically coded and all of that through Tinsdale or Shakespeare, should I say. And there's many different versions of the Bible going back to King James, to the Latin Vulcan, the Vulcan Latin shit, and it keeps going back to the Ethiopian Coptic, the first Christians ever who put it down, which were black people, overstand that science. So what I'm saying is we're going to give it to you from different aspects. So I'm going to break this flood story down into parts. I'm going to give you all the first part today where we're going to deal with it kind of from a literal sense and read the scriptures and then see how that pertains to self metaphysically, okay? So that's what we're going to do today. So being that we got the math, like I said, 2 plus 1, wisdom, we want to get that overstanding on the flood, right? So we're going to tap in. And the flood story begins in Genesis 10, I guess. So I'm going to read from there, and I want y'all to see that I'm using the Bible. These are my notes that I scribed on. And I'm also dealing with the holy tablets, as you can see. Going into the generations of Abraham here, as you can see. So I just want to be clear that that my sources and all of that are what I'm dealing with, along with my own, interpretations or downloads that I get, right, to come up with that inner and outer overstanding. So we're going to begin. We're going to go right into chapter 10 of Genesis. Remember, Genesis is actually the genes of Isis, for those that don't know. Genesis, the word is the genes. You can see the word genes in there. You can see the word is Isis. The genes of Isis, Genesis. So a lot of this Bible is going back to Kemet and ancient Sumeria. It's coming from ancient texts. Most people don't understand that. They think that this is something that was ordainedly inspired and gave it to a man and, all of this other shit. No, these are ancient texts that they use so you can have a familiarity to it, because this is thousands of years that people have been learning this stuff. It's been passed down to, people have been learning this for thousands. You can't just erase it. You can't just take it away. So they coded it, switched it up, changed characters, switched names, do all this other fuck shit. And now you still familiar with it. It's like, oh, I feel that in a way, but it don't make sense. But I can still, that's why a lot of people cling to the Christianity, because it has your ancient roots inside of it. It has a lot of your ancient roots inside of it. You can see it with an allegorical eye to understand the story that's being interpreted, that you can understand self in the Bible. Shout out to, the rest in peace, to William Donohue. He was one of the best ones at that type of shit, especially when it came to the Bible. So shout out to him. So So now we're going to get into the Genesis 10. It says, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah. Key, stop right there. We got to fixate in on the flood and who the flood is pertaining. Like, who is this about? Okay, so it's also about Noah and his sons. And so his son's name was Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. So it was a flood, and then after the flood, sons were born unto Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Right? The sons of Japheth were Gomer and Magog and Madian, then and Javan and Tubal and Meshach and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer was Ashkenaz and Raphiat and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan was Elisha and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands. By these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their family and their nation. So what they're basically saying is each one of those people represent a different nation, right? So each one of those persons are responsible for bringing forth a different type of nation of people, okay? That's what that's basically saying. So when it gets into the sons of Ham, right, we talk about Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan. These were the four sons of Ham. So as you can see, they're having kids, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Japheth bore Gomer, Ma'ag, Madi, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. See what I'm saying? And they bore kids. But once Gomer and them started having kids, blah, 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 saying there's nations coming out of them loins. So Ham and them having kids now. You feel me? Ham having kids, and he got Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan. Now these represent different nations, if y'all follow. You know what I mean? And the sons of Cush, Sheba, Havilah, Sabath, Rama, Sabtecha, and the sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begot Nimrod. And he began to be a mighty one in the earth. So let's stop right there. Cush, the brother Cush, who is the son of Ham, becomes a mighty one on the earth after the flood. Okay? So that means it was fucked up, shit was being rebuilt, and he became that nigga all of a sudden. Nimrod, a mighty one. These are the words they're using. We're going to get into a linguistics breakdown on the spells, but we're doing the literal sense right now because we're going to get into what mighty mean and what this mean and all of that. But right now I'm going to be literal because a lot of people are literal. They believe this stuff literally. So I'm going to pertain it to yourself in a minute. So it's saying, and Nimrod became a mighty one, right? Nimrod became a mighty one in the earth, and he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar, in the land of Shinar. So now this guy, Nimrod, he's in a certain section of earth, Shinar. Today, that will be Iraq, y'all. What they call Mesopotamia, what they call Sumer, what they call, Akkadian and Babylonian and Assyrian and all of that stuff. All of that in that area over there, right, would be Shinar and all of that. That's what that dude was at. He was basically, Nimrod was over there, a black dude, right? And today that would be Iraq. So you saying a black dude was over there with a kingdom. Matter of fact, the first kingdom after the flood. And he was a mighty one before the Lord, a mighty hunter before the Lord, right? So this dude is on some shit, whoever this character is, Nimrod. You know what I mean? The son of Cush, who is the son of Ham. And these are black people, these are Negroids, as you can see. Clearly, Ham is coming from Sudan, right? Then you have Cush coming from Ethiopia, Mizraim, Egypt, Put, Libya, Canaan, modern day Israel today. But they were the first ones to go into that so-called promised land, the Canaanites who received the curse, not Ham. Clearly it says in his Bible that Canaan caught the curse and not Ham. So understand that. Okay? So Nimrod was a mighty hunter before the Lord, where it said, even he is a mighty hunter before the Lord. And then the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, and the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Ashur, and built Niven, and the city of Rehoboth, and Kala. Okay? So it's basically starting to say these people went out, started building. It's how the nations of these loins of the seeds having loins, nations come out of their loins, right? And all of that. Because it was promised to Abraham from God that many nations was going to come up out of your loins, or whatever. Now, these dudes ain't related to Abraham, though, right? And understand that Abraham went against this dude, Nimrod. As we get further into the story and more in depth, their religious beliefs didn't match. Abraham was on one thing, the nigga Nimrod was on something else. I told you God had to come down, right? And so when we think about how does this apply to ourselves, we're going to go further into get down to the Tower of Babel aspect. Okay, Abe and Joe Cub. So this is just basically giving you the sons and all of that, right? Because then they talk about Shem after their families, the tongues in their land and after their nation. These are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations and in their nations, blah, blah, blah. So we're just talking about Noah and giving you the lineage, a character supposedly named Noah. Because like I said, on the linguistics aspect, we're going to get into what Noah really means, Hebrew, and where they get this word from. Okay? But we tapped into all that, right? I wanted to get into the Tower of Babel real quick. But we know the basis on the Tower of Babel. Let me find that chapter. Where is it at? It's in 8:12. Let me see. That was just the nation. So I think it's in Micah, the prophet book. Hold on 1 second, family. Let me find the chapter. Prophets. Judges. We know that the story of the Tower of Babel is basically in the land of Shinar, where this guy Nimrod is building a tower to the heavens. I want to get the specific words though, so we make no confusion on prophets. Jeremiah, where is my Isaiah? Oh, there you go. Passed it. Okay. Okay, yeah. So boom. Micah 5:6. Okay. 5:6 says, and they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod and the entrance thereof. Thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrians when he cometh into our land, and when he treadeth within our borders. I guess they're talking about Abraham coming to save them. I'm saying that before that, in 5 it says, and this man shall be the peace when the Assyrians shall come in our land, and when he shall tread in our palace, then shall we raise up against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. Right? So they're talking about right there somebody coming to come shut down Nimrod's operation, right? But in the Bible, I can't find a specific chapter right now. I don't know why. But in the Bible, in the Tower of Babel, Nimrod builds this tower. Understand Babel is basically the gates of the garden, the gates of the God, right? The definition of the word coming from Akkadian definition. But in Hebrew, the definition of the word means to confuse because they have it as Babel, meaning in the story, God comes down from heaven with two of his angels, or two of his assistants, two of his hosts. They come down and they can find the tongues of this man because this man had formed one government. You feel me? He formed dominance, control, kingdom, empire, cities. He had people come together and not following the ways of the Elohim or the Anunnaki that was in play, that put the rules down when they created these humans, per se. Because it's a real Sumerian story that ties into all of this. You know what I'm saying? That we were created to be slaves. Humans were created to be slaves. And by him moving on a certain frequency, they had no control over him. They had no mind control. They couldn't control him. But they could control everybody else to do the work that they wanted them to do because everybody was slaves to the Anunnakis. But because Yahweh is basically Enlil, the Anunnaki, if ones know the scriptures, if they're following and studying it. So understand, they Nimrod and them in that area of Shinar, which he's a black man who's related to Cush, which goes back to Ethiopia, which means these people are Commission. These people are Egyptian. Nimrod and them is basically Egyptians, but they over there in that land. How did he get there? From that flood. You know, there was a flood, obviously, on the planet. Not the flood, you know, the Noah flood. The Noah flood story is telling you about a certain event that happened on the planet where somebody had to get on a boat and survive and ended up in that area. Black people from Africa had to get on the boat and go to ended up in another area. Kind of. That's what that's saying. So when they landed in that new area, some of them returned home. Mizraim and all them, they went back to Africa. That's why Egypt is over there in Africa, like in Mizraim. That's why you can say that. That's why you can say Cush is Ethiopia, because they went back. They found their way back home after the flood. Nimrod stayed in that area. And he used the Egyptian technology and the masonry that he knew, because these people was already builders. And like I said, even in historians have it to where simultaneously Mesopotamia is getting built up as a city and a government and all of that. And Egypt is getting built up because this is in a Bronze Age. It's the time frame of that, okay? Where tin and copper comes together and they make a new metal. You feel me? And so they got these new weapons. You know what I'm saying? So now they feeling like, okay, we got new tools. We done made a wheel and all that shit. They done popped off with the wheel. So now chariots and shit is coming into play. You dig? Niggas wasn't just riding horses now. Now I'm being lavish. I got the chariot. I'm whipping. So shit is advancing, but this is all being brought through from people like Nimrod. You know, pushing these agendas. And God didn't like that. You know, Yahweh or Enlil or whatever character you want to say, the Lord God in the Bible came down with his host and he confounded the tongues. And this is where it becomes Babel and not Babel, or the Ba of El, because the word Ba is in it. So we're talking about the soul of El. So Nimrod felt like he had the soul of El because the Babylonians worshiped a god called Baal. Baal, Ba, Ah, B-A is in the word and Al. So we're talking about the Ba, the soul of El, the Most High. So he was actually dealing with a different God, and that's why he was able to build and do all the shit he was doing to get to the heavens. They was like, yo, how he doing this shit? We don't need no nigga doing that shit. And got these niggas all this with all, you know, he was the first nigga to make money. He put his face on coins. Nimrod was the first nigga to make coins and all of that shit. Ching ching. Start banking systems and you know what I'm saying, and all of that. He was the first one to do government, like to have societies, bro. Over there. This is they're giving it up to him for that. But what he did wasn't in it don't coincide with God per se. It don't coincide with Yahweh in the Bible. The God of the Bible don't like Nimrod doing shit on his own without God's permission. But he did all that by himself. He figured it out. He got smart somehow. So somehow the Anunnakis was like, oh no, these niggas done got smart enough because we made slaves. They're supposed to be slavers. They're not supposed to know how to build towers to the heavens. These niggas got so smart, we got to go down there and confound their tongues. We got to cause some confusion, which means that's the period where the genetic chromosome number 2 was altered. Because in humans, there's a time period now, they say we're humans, if you scientifically they're saying this, that one of our chromosomes got fucked with. Did y'all know that? The second chromosome in us, somebody done fucked with it. You know? So obviously when the Yahweh came down, they seen Nimrod, who was supposed to be slaves, but these niggas is powerful, they done turned into gods. He's like a god to the people. People love Nimrod like a god. So you can see how mortal men can be worshipped or revered as a god type of nigga if you got that kind of intelligence, if you got that kind of powerful mind. Niggas will look at you like a god. Like, oh shit, that's some godly shit. I ain't never seen a nigga do no shit like that. You done mixed tin with copper and it came up with motherfucking brass. You understand what I'm saying? Or bronze? Blah, 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 whatever it is. So it's like, yeah, being inventive and being creative, it makes you look ill. Like to a motherfucker that ain't never do that shit or never seen it. So people were calling this nigga like a god and all that. You know what I'm saying? Where he's in some of the later stories, he might be Baal. He might be the god Baal in the Babylonian. You know, it goes further and further to the Akkadian Sargon and blah, blah, blah. He could have been that king and blah, 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 right? But we know it was some type of figure of a man who they kind of like mytholized and fucked up his story. Whoever this being was, it was somebody there in play a long time ago at that time who was on some shit, and a group of beings, the Bible beings, whoever is representing this Bible shit, they didn't like that nigga doing what he was doing, right? And so what does that represent itself? When you think about Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, how does that apply to you? Well, it applies to you because it's an aspect of falling from consciousness, of falling from grace, okay? And that's not lineage, right? We're talking about man forgetting his divine origin. You forgot who the fuck you is. None of us don't know our tongue. All of us right now, this is the Tower of Babel type shit. Black motherfuckers over in America is going through the real live Tower of Babel. The tongue has been confounded, but this applies to the whole humanity. But I'm just giving you an example of how it applies to you right now. You don't know your fucking native tongue. You don't know shit. You speaking English. You been hit with the English. It'll last you on your back with the English. So there's no way around it, bro. You know what I mean? Your tongue is confounded. And the chromosome, like I told you. That's scientifically. So man has forgotten their divine origin, right? And you have become a subject rather than a sovereign. Nimrod was sovereign. He was sovereign. Motherfucker, I run this shit. Nobody telling me, get the fuck out. I ain't listening to that shit. Blah, blah, blah. I'm sovereign. Nigga, I do what I want to do. Now you have become subjected to all of these man-made laws, all of this shit that's in play. Boom, boom. You can't even go get an apple off the tree. They're going to charge you. Water ain't free. Air ain't free. Nothing free. They on some bullshit out here. Somebody's playing the God out here. Physically, somebody's really took Nimrod position. That Nimrod shit that Nimrod did first, somebody saw it and was like, ooh, I'm going to take that, I'm going to steal that and do it in my own way. Because that's what's happening. The same blueprint that Nimrod had is the same government we're in right now. Harambe laws. It's the same shit. Coins and all this system and everything we doing is some shit Nimrod did. So that system still exists. It's just that people in play now have became to be destroyers instead of dominators, because Nimrod was a dominator. He was a generator, an operator, and a dominator. He was about dominance. He wasn't about destroying, as we say today. Somebody switched that to generator, operator, destroyer. I don't know where that came from. But you were supposed to be a dominator to become a god. You want dominance. ATC. So understand, it represents you not being sovereign. You becoming a subject, subjected to. Right? You're no longer a god. Right? And like I told you, the Babel is the fall of the natural law. You know what I'm saying? You fell from natural laws into what we call today man-made laws. Right? The confusion of the tongue, the loss of your names, the loss of your nationality, you feel me? And your divine laws. You don't even understand divine law. You think what I'm saying? Because the man-made laws shook you up so bad. You fear that shit more than divine law. You put man-made laws before divine laws. Come on. So, understand, right? Nimrod will represent the falsehood of nationality, and to a degree. It will represent the falsehood because he was about himself and not about God. per se. So it's falsehood in that, right? But it also represents empires. You're supposed to be on some emperor shit. You know what I'm saying? And it also represents enslaved. Because you was enslaved by these people. Once they came and could find the tongue to twist y'all back up, y'all went right back under the spell. Boom. Lost your identity. You feel me? Through the loss of identity is what confounds you. So it becomes mental colonization before it becomes physical colonization. It had to mentally colonize you. Ruling through identity. You can rule through identity. You feel me? And confusion. I can use confusion and identity to rule people instead of force. Because that's what happened to us right now in modern time. We have been confused about our identity. So somebody's giving us his story, his version of the story. Somebody's narrating the story. So of course they're gonna put in play that Nimrod was an evil motherfucker. He black too? Oh, that nigga wasn't shit. God had to come down and fuck them niggas up. You heard? So we're gonna continue this demo on part 2. And we're gonna get into a more of a esoteric aspect and break down the divine creed of things. You know, divine and the fig tree you come from, and how this story of the flood and Nimrod pertains to you. So it's been another galactic glorious day. Y'all travel in harmony. Peace.